Hello and welcome to Showband Heroes, where we get to meet the men and women who created the most successful live music era in Irish history and who entertained us throughout the 60s and 70s and kept us dancing with each other even during our darker days. My guest today is Maurice Cooney. You're very welcome, Maurice.
Thank you, Steve.
Maurice, it's always an extra thrill for me to talk to a bass player. So how did it all start for you?
Well, I was a choir boy, Father Moore's choir in Uri. Got a good ear for music. Then it was playing around the pubs. Skiffle. I learned the banjo, the G banjo, the banjo mandolin, and then do you remember the big bass chest for skiffle that people used? I done that too. So then I formed a band called Penny Lane, playing before all the show bands, like in the Castle, you know the Castle, Stephen, in Banbridge, the Adelphi in Dundalk. We were supporting all these bands, the Great Northern and Strever. And that's how I began, yeah. And then I heard from a roadie with a band called Frank Chisholm, June, and the Top Seven. The roadie told me there was an audition going in Dublin for the Cotton Mill Boys, as for bass, guitar, and drums. The boys had left. I think it was Bill Ryan and Buckshot they'd gone to. And I went down to got the taxi down to Dublin, £8, and I was earning £10 a week as a builder suppliers trainee manager. And the gig come down to me and this bass player out of Tracy in the Grassroots, and he got it. But they were from the same management group, Brian Malloy, Brian Costello. That was the same group. So I think he had the gig already, to be honest. But a week later, I didn't get the gig. A week later, I got another phone call, come down for another. These auditions, by the way, Stephen, were in the Town and Country Club in Dublin, you know, the Town and Muck, the Dubs used to call it, you know, condescending, you know. So I was down a week later, and I was the only one to turn up. So Pat Murphy, who was the man who was, so Pat's the harmonica player in the Cadets, and he was Brian Malloy's, you know, man on the scene. So Pat Malloy said to me, "Okay, I'll give you a month's trial." And I was there a year later, and nobody told me I didn't have the job. You know the way it works. So that's how I got into the show band scene, got my foot in the door.
Was that the Cotton Mill Boys, wasn't it?
That was no. I didn't get the audition for the Cotton Mill Boys, but the bass player in Tracy in the Grassroots got it. So his vacancy become free within the same office. So a week later, I'm down for his job, and I was the only one that turned up.
And that was a very sort of incestuous banter. That whole group, wasn't it? I mean, Tracy, the Grassroots, the Cotton Mill Boys, Buckshot. They were interchanging the musicians. A lot.
Like this, I can't remember the name of that bass player, but that job was his anyway. But yet they were doing the audition for the drummer and the guitar player as well. And I remember at the end of that audition, before I got my taxi man come back to me, I was playing with Jim McCann. He come along looking for a musician as well. Yeah. But I had to play bass with Jim McCann, the only time I ever met him in my life. It's funny how life works, isn't it?
Yeah. It may well have been Tommy Kinsella, maybe that got that was.
Yeah, Tommy, yeah.
He had come from a band, a rock band called The Orange Machine with Robin Crowley.
That's right. A great band.
Great band, yeah. Robin, he used to do all the hammer-ons with I saw them many times. Great band. But you were in good company anyway at that stage.
Yeah.
But when did the change come from playing the G banjo to
that was back home. That was because I wanted to be a lead player, but I just couldn't get a grasp on being a lead player. So I just decided bass, and it worked for me. But then I felt, do you know the way, Stephen? We're both bass players, and bass is like a mixture of harmony and rhythm, and we're always in the background with your foot on the monitor. We're not that man. That's the lead guitar player, isn't it? Like we're always in the background, but we can't be done without. You know.
Yeah.
And you see that drummer, he just does a riff, and you go with him, and you haven't rehearsed it. He's your friend for life, isn't he?
Yeah, it certainly is cooperation between the two of you, isn't it? The drum and the bass.
Yeah.
You know, most of us probably tried guitar at the beginning, but it's a different way of thinking, isn't it? It's like it's like somebody saying you're a tradesman, even though if the person is a plumber, it's like expecting him to do your electrics. We're different animals, aren't we?
Yeah.
So what was your first bass, Maurice?
It was an imitation.
Yeah.
It was a Fender imitation. And and honestly, this is bringing back memories for you. Band Bridge. I was playing in the coach, not the coach in Band Bridge. And I left. It was in the car. The pubs at these days closed at 10 o'clock at night. And I had left it in the car, and someone broke in and stole it. We had gone to a pub next door and to the coach in Band Bridge for a late drink, you know, one of those ones. And I come back out. And this guitar, I mean, I didn't even have, you know, it was just lying there raw. It was, Stephen. There was no case for it. Someone just stole it. So I went to Ever Clark's music shop in Newry the next day, and I bought a £275 Fender Jazz. And I told him I'd pay him £40 a month. And I was earning £38 a month coming out with as a builder supplier, as the trainee manager. But I paid it every month. In 6 months, I had it paid off because I was making money around the pubs. I was making more money around the pubs than it wasn't in my weekly job. You know,
Yeah.
So to get into the music scene, you know, I just had to have a good instrument. You know, so it was a Fender Jazz. You know,
You went from the ridiculous to the sublime because having an imitation going to a Fender Jazz. I mean, that's the top at the time, wasn't it? I mean, jazz. I was a Fender Precision man, but yeah, it was like heaven.
Yeah, I love the slim neck of the Jazz. You know,
yeah, I was the other way around. I loved the big wide neck.
But here, Billy Brown told me once, and I've mentioned this before, Stephen. There's no such thing as a bad Fender.
No, that's true.
But you said to me, perhaps not with bass wise.
Yeah. I'm sure Billy's bass player, Tory McGahey, he played a Fender Precision.
That's right, Tory. What a player.
I think he had it was like a Telecaster type neck on it. It was a slab type thing. Yeah, he had a great sound, didn't he? He did all the clicky bits for the Beach Boys stuff and all that. I remember. It was terrific. So you were now established with Tracy and the Grassroots. That would have been what?
71, late 71, 72, I think.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. Before I had ever played in a band, when I was playing around the pubs, playing, you know, the bass guitar, any chance I got, I would get the bus to Dundalk, 13 miles from Newry, on a Friday or a Sunday night, if the Freshmen or the Platterman were playing. Those were my heroes. You know, those they really were. It was, you know, Billy Brown. You know, it was Derek Dean. But it was just I didn't go to dance, get a woman, anything. I would have stood up the left-hand side of the stage. Crazy boxes we had in those days, wasn't it? Like, I'm just listening for the 2 hours there, just to the musicians playing, and wishing that I could just be in a band like that. That was just the way I was. And Big Rob Strong and Simon Scott, the Plattermen. They never played in Newry, funny enough, those bands, you know, in the parochial hall or the town hall. But I love those two bands. He just does a riff.
The strange thing about say the two bands you mentioned, the Freshmen and the Plattermen. You're talking about the Plattermen when Rob was fronting them, as opposed to because they were a country band before that, weren't they?
They were before, but Big Rob. I remember Rob doing one abiding memory is the Funky Chicken, Rufus Thomas.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sort of his voice. He was just special. And he become a friend over the years. Then he become when I got into the bands, we become friends. Another bass player, Stephen.
Another bass player, and a fine bass player he was
Oh,
too.
wonderful, wonderful.
But the thing about the interesting thing about that when it came to show bands, they probably didn't regard themselves as a classic show band. But the fact is that show bands that began in the early 60s, say with the likes of the Royal and the Miami and the Capitol bands like that, they were classic show bands that did sort of everything. But even at that, they evolved and became bands like the Freshmen and the Plattermen and Chips and bands like that. And later on, the Miami people, they were more or less either rock bands or beat groups or pop groups, weren't they? As opposed to the classic style of show band.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where I gravitated towards was the more rock and roll type of band. I would never knock country music, but it wouldn't be Ray Lynham, what a fine singer. Brenton Quinn, who I played with, what a fine country singer. But basically, when I got my foot in the door with Tracy and the Grassroots, I wanted to move up into the pop bands as such,
But isn't it a great grounding to join a country band? Doesn't it really teach you how to play bass? One of those, I call them pure styles, whether it's country, rock and roll, rockabilly, or reggae, they teach you where the note goes and how to play rhythm. And
Stephen, it's a discipline.
It is.
Yeah. Just, you can't be fancy. You work with the drummer, you fit in, you're most important part of the unit. You can't be done without.
No.
But you're in the background, as I said before,
When you talk about Rob Strong, I mean, Rob is one of the people that brought bass out front because obviously he was the lead singer as well. So you took notice of the bass and what he was doing. People like Paul McCartney made the bass prominent in the band. So after a while, it wasn't just sitting in the background, was it? There were people out there and featuring the bass. That must have been exciting for you.
It was. But that's when I realised that first when I went to Roly Daniels and read Hurley. It was then. But it was more, Stephen, because I was getting an opportunity to sing as well as play bass then. Not only harmonies, but to do maybe half a dozen songs in the programme. So that made me feel good,
So what happened after the Grassroots? You left the Grassroots, or did you go to another band?
Grassroots. There was an opportunity came with Potching. They were sort of like a Celtic rock type of band, Charlie Arkins was playing with them. And Charlie's some player. Oh, dear. Eric Murray, he had been with the Dreams. He was the lead singer. So they done a lot of pop songs, and I was progressing along and what I wanted to do. And but it broke up. The gigs weren't there. Broke up after about 3 months. So the members of the band, we decided to resurrect the name Tomorrow's People, and we went up and down the country playing Good Time Charlies in Cork and Dublin and things like that. I got my brother Harry down then from Newry. He was a civil servant and a lovely singer. Harry was never properly recognised as a top singer in Ireland. He became Bloody Morgan of the Pirates, But I got him down and then it broke up as well. But it was under Jim Farley and Roly Daniels and Mick Quinn's management. So I was given the job. I was asked then to join when some of the boys left Roly Daniels band, the bass player and whatever. And Big Jim said to me, "Do you want the job?" And I said, "Of course I do." So I'm with Roly Daniels, wonderful band to play. And Roly, what a singer! You're talking about Showband Heroes, Hello Darling and all that. What a country singer, Roly, but what a rock and roller too. He'd been in Nevada, as you know. We finished off, Stephen, our number, finishing one with Roly was Ashton Gardner and Dyke, the Resurrection Show. He's a big 6'2" man. He's all there and he can belt it out. And it was just a pleasure to play with him,
He had learned his trade really with the Nevada, didn't he?
Yeah.
Roly, so he was a seasoned performer. But this was really, as far as we were concerned, this was Roly's first sort of time going into country, because he was known as, as you say, a big sort of big ballads and country for himself and Jim Farley was the biggest thing they had done up until then.
Yeah. But it was all about money too, Stephen. Too. You know, like this was Hello Darling made him such a big name. You know, like Big Jim. Like, he taught me more than anyone on the road about arranging harmonies, arranging brass sections. Before gigs, he had us all just sort of jamming as such, like, you know, like Take 5. You know, on the bass, and he was teaching us, you know, even though we were playing mostly country music and all, and I just couldn't get enough of it, you know. What a pleasure. And he's still a friend. And I remember you trying to asking you a couple of years ago during lockdown, could you get me his number? And you tried Brenton Banas and people like that to get the number from me, but eventually I got it. I got the number, and now we're in contact every week, you know, and thank you.
Yeah, well, bands that you were playing with, well, apart from Jim and Roly's, but before that, bands like the Freshmen and even Potchin and the Platterman, they weren't dance bands, were they? I mean, they were. You went to listen and watch, didn't you?
They were pop bands. We were taking the place of the troubles and say in Ireland, Northern Ireland especially, and those English musicians, those bands didn't come over. So we were doing their job on their hits. You know?
After you left the grassroots, you went to Potchin, and then from that you went to
Tomorrow's People, and then it was Roly Daniels.
Was that Green County?
The Green County, yeah.
They were a huge band, weren't they? I mean, it was like...
Oh, they're massive.
I think I remember Jim telling me years afterwards, it took him by surprise as well.
Oh, man, dear. Like I remember playing the two biggest gigs that I would say around that time in Ireland were the Green County, the Hotel Muirmore and Carrickmacross. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
Huge gigs.
Yeah, massive crowds. You see those photographs in black and white of the crowds. See, Traveller's Friend, that was something else. I've never seen the likes of that. Great gigs too, you know, like Horns and Tralee, you know, the Easter weekend and Horns and Ballybunion also.
What was it like to play the North? I mean, at the time, it was a pretty volatile place.
We didn't play it, Stephen.
Did you not?
No, because I never played the North with Red Hurley. I played it with Tracy in the Grassroots. I didn't play it with Roly. Maybe a very rare gig because everyone was aware of the threat. Mm.
So what year was that?
73, 74, 75. And that hurt me because, you know, being from Newry, I would have liked to have played in front of the people to let them see how well I had done, how I'd got up in the band game. And I really missed not playing in front of my own people in the north of Ireland, you know?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But they were all aware of the threat. Well, in Daniel's band and Roly's band and in Red's band, they were, Stephen.
I do remember seeing the film The Nevada made like a documentary, and this was years after our incident. But I remember they were flagging it up maybe about a year before, about 1974, and Willie was saying things like, you know, that they didn't really need to do it, which was a tragedy really in itself for the people in the north, wasn't it?
Of course, yeah. Oh, we had no say in the matter. We were just paid musicians.
Yeah. So how after Roly's band?
What happened was I was in the Revolution Club in Dublin one night, and Julie Boyd, remember Julie off the Spotlight?
I do, yeah.
Julie was in the Revolution Club, and I was quite friendly with Julie, you know, because she'd always she'd put your name in the spotlight, you know, and you know the way it is, like you like a wee bit of publicity, you know. She says to me, Red's looking for a bass player, you know. He's rehearsing in the Tara Club in the morning. I says, is he? Paul Ashford was supposed to get the gig, but Paul turned it down. So they're all rehearsing. When I walked in, I got the green velvet jacket, I had my best clothes on, And Red says to me, well, I said, I'd like the bass job. Julie was telling me that you're looking for the bass player. And he says to me, who do you play with? And I says, I play with big Jim Farley and Roly Daniels. He said, well, when can you start? I didn't have to play a note, Stephen. Because you play with Big Jim.
Oh, yeah. So what an endorsement to say that you played with Jim. I was in the studio with Jim a couple of times, and I mean, the man's just phenomenal.
He is just such a good man, too. Just a lovely man. Oh, man. See, I love him so, So anyway, our first gig was a Thursday night. Tramore, the Atlantic Ballroom in Tramore. Do you remember that? A Thursday night. Great, it was great. And Julie came along with us just to report for the Spotlight magazine.
Well, she was always hitching a lift on the road someplace.
She was out by the Green Isle.
She could actually make or break a band. I mean, her column.
Oh yeah, everyone read that.
Yeah, she was, as somebody said, the head of hopper of Ireland at the time. Yeah. The great critic. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to cross her either. You wouldn't get your picture in the paper.
No, you would not. No. But I like Julie. I had great time for her. Yeah, she had great stamina. I mean, when it came to it, I mean, she was at everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was probably it was between herself and Brian Darcy as who would make the most gigs in any night in Dublin.
Yeah. She was everywhere. You'd see her in the Revolution Club, Barry's Hotel, and then like half an hour later, she'd be up in the TV club.
Your first night with Red Hurley was where?
In the Atlantic and Tramore.
A fabulous gig. I mean, what a buzz!
Probably the biggest Thursday night gig in Ireland. Then,
for some reason or other, Tramore was a big attraction for people in the north.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And Ballybunion and Tralee Ballybunion would have been an attraction for the Dubs, for the Dublin people, wouldn't it? And they used to wreck the place too. Yeah. I remember bad memories of some of the scenes down there, And
there was also a place there called the Central.
The Central played there as well. What about Sea Point in Galway, Stephen? Apart from carrying the equipment up those steps, well, we didn't have to. The roadies did it. Yeah, but I think there was 4 sets of steps up to Sea Point, wasn't it? And
they were outside. It was like they used to carry the gear up. It was like a fire escape. I remember Johnny Fiend telling me that, of course, Horslips did everything big time, but Johnny told me they hired a crane to bring their gear up. I think he may have been winding me up.
For them. Well, for them indeed.
Yeah, fantastic gigs, and it wouldn't have been a big stretch apart from the music itself, but the fact that Roly had a big voice and Red had a big voice as well.
Yeah.
So did you concentrate on those big showstopper numbers, or was it
not really? We concentrated on what was in the charts. Basically, I was like, his ballads, maybe a quarter of the show, if that, were his ballads. Like I Know and all those that he had #1 hits with an iron. But basically, the program was top of the pops. 3/4 of the show. Yeah.
So that's two of the greatest singers Ireland has ever seen. You were working with.
Yeah.
So that must have been a thrill looking down at huge crowds like that.
Oh yeah. I actually, when I was with Red, I was announcing all the numbers. And at that stage, the manager wasn't Tommy Hayden. TJ Byrne was managing us then. Lovely, lovely man. Mm-hmm. But TJ, after about a month, he told Red that my voice as an announcer of the song, of the program, was too high-pitched. Northern Ireland people have these high-pitched accents like myself. So I was taken off announcing. And it was given to Neely Gilday he was the sax player. Neely's from Glenties. Lovely fella.
It's a difficult life for a married man, or especially a married man with kids. It's perhaps more difficult for their wives and their families because you're not there for the important age.
Important times, yeah.
No, you're not. You're a slave to that. Yeah. Some people take to it naturally. Others just can't. just don't want to be part of that. And probably somebody told me at one stage that Barney Skillen, who I have always thought that was the greatest all-round guitar player that Ireland ever produced, that was with the Clippers, that Barney quit and became a postman or something.
Family life. The most important thing in the world is Stephen family, isn't it?
It is, but a lot of the bandsmen went into maybe management or sort of some way related to the to the music business itself. But what did you do when you left Red's band, Red Hurley?
I was out of work and I went home and got a phone call from Brendan Quinn. What a fine country singer Brendan Quinn is,
Yes.
Lovely man, lovely country singer. And he said to me, "Will you help me out? I'm starting a new band, the Bluebirds." And I said, "Listen, I'm home with my mother here. I want to get back to Dublin, into the pop scene." He says, "Well, will you help me out?" And for a few months, which I did. And
well, you would have played the North when you were with the Bluebirds with Brendan.
Oh yeah, but Brendan Maher, all of those 3 months was for Brendan. Most of the gigs were 3/4 of the gigs were in the North.
As I remember, it was a Far and Young cover, 4 a.m. that made
4 a.m. Yeah.
That was the big one for Brendan, wasn't it?
Yeah. First gig I played for him was Clubland in Cookstown on a Friday night. Yeah. But it was. I just wanted to get back to Dublin.
Yeah, but when you were playing with Brendan Quinn, the Bluebirds, you had concerns, or at least the band had concerns when you were down in Dublin about playing the North.
I hadn't, Stephen.
You
no.
Didn't? Yeah.
Oh God, no.
So was were those concerns justified, or did you really enjoy it?
Me being from the North, it was never a problem. When I go back to the days when I was in the pubs, whatever, one night you had to play God Save the Queen when you finished your program. The next night, depending on where you were, I had to play the Soldier Song. We're musicians. Our band was always our Flash, our band, a mixture of Catholics and Protestant. Religion never came into anything, so we were used to all this. So you're getting paid money. You don't tell anyone, Stephen, that you're playing the Soldier Song or the Queen, where you live in a 95% Republican town like Newry, because maybe someone would have put a bomb onto your van and you're not insured, like that. So you have to, you say nothing, and that's just the way of life for us. So that was never a bother to me, that, and to Northern Ireland musicians in general, the many that I know and played with, no, that was never a problem.
Sure. Well, it wasn't concerned to me until it was a concern.
Well, yeah.
But
that could have been. Oh man, dear, it's not for me to speak for things like that. But it could have been other bands too, and that's why they didn't want to go up there and play. The Red didn't play there,
But I've always said that the Showbands were heroes, and that's where we came up with the name for this particular series, because they did work that they didn't realize they were doing. They were bringing people together, the communities together. They were totally non-sectarian. So when they played in a venue, they played to everybody, and Catholics and Protestants, Unionists, Nationalists, they all went in and danced together, and it was a fantastic thing to do. But we didn't realize, as you know,
didn't. Irish people, some people would say the GAA is the biggest thing in Ireland all over the years. I would say music is, Stephen. Yeah,
I agree. So when after Brendan and the Bluebirds, then you got the job with.
I got a phone call at the flat in Maharafelta was based in. It wasn't Dublin, put it that way. From Cahir O'Doherty's manager, Aidan Hand. Aidan Hand rang me up, and he says to me, "Do you fancy joining the CAC?" He's managing Cahir O'Doherty. He says, "We're looking for a drummer and a bass player. We've got Martin McElroy, who played with you in Red's band, and the CAC saw you playing in Malloy's and Tala, or 6 months back, and we'd like you to join the band. I said, of course. And he said, what sort of money will you live? I said, listen, don't worry about money. I just want to get back to Dublin, just to play. And I was delighted, and so I joined Cahir O'Doherty, the Dazzle band. Yeah. And that was wonderful.
This is another sort of Rob Strong type of vibe on stage, isn't it?
Yeah, what had happened was Jesus Christ Superstar was in Dublin.
Yeah.
I think it was the State Cinema in Phibsborough, wasn't it? And CAC, the big, Colin Wilkinson and CAC were the big men there. And after that was over, Jim Hand said to CAC, we'll put this band on the road, the Dazzle band. And CAC was just a rock and roller. Talk about big show bands. I'm digressing a little bit, Steve. I would have loved to play it in the Gentry. Cahir O'Doherty's band, the Gentry, or Tweed, those bands, But I did get the chance to play with Donny Devaney was in the Dazzle band with me, and Jerry Mulran, the trumpet player, was in Red Hurley with me, and they were in the Gentrys. I got to know those lovely men, two friends. I'm in contact with them regularly on Facebook, and but the Gentry, that one, I just adored bands like that. You see,
the Gentry had a string of fabulous musicians. Ed Dean, the left-handed player, he used to play at Ann Armstrong, plexiglass.
Yeah.
But they also had, I think, in the original band, they did have Brian Harris, who was one of my
Brian
favorite
Harris,
friends.
yeah.
And then later on, they had Tony Gertie, God rest him, that joined
That's right. Yeah.
So CAC's band, he never had a bad band. So again, it's another big thing on your CV. The fact that you played with Cahir O'Doherty, or CAC as he's better known. Yeah, and he's doing very well now.
I'll be in touch with him all the time in America. Jim Farley come to me and he said, we're going to Canada. And do you fancy it? And I said, yeah, I really do. Because Parry was Bloody Morgan and the Parrots, and he was in Canada then, doing the Thunder Bay and the Maple Leaf in Toronto and that. And I was thinking, I'd love just to experience that. But the Jim Farley gig folded, Steve. I didn't get going there, So I ended up back home in Uri. And Harry, the Parrots, Bloody Morgan and the Parrots folded, and he ended up back in Uri. So 6-7 years later, we're back where we started.
So what did you do when Jim's thing folded and Canada?
We're back home.
Materialize?
Mommy's looking after us, we haven't got much money saved, but Cecil Thompson's a big promoter in Northern Ireland, manager of bands. He managed Sunshine. They had one opportunity to knock 6 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Bryce Norrie and Stuart Bingham and Rosie, beautiful Rosie. And he headhunted us. And originally he wanted Harry. He called Harry Big Fella, like Michael Collins, Big Fella. Right? I'm going to put you to get Big Rob Strong and you together to form a band. Harry says, listen, my brother's here with me, Maurice. He's played with Red and Roly and that, him and myself, we're going to start a band. But we need some backing. And he says, right, meet me on the Whitehead. He owned a hotel in the Royal St. George in Whitehead, just up the Newton Arch way. Meet me. And we went up there. We drove up there and had a wee chat. And we went to his flat and he pulled £2,000 from under the mattress in his bed, Steve. And I'm just, right, let's get the show on the road. So we bought a Bedford van for £750 on a I think it was H&H PA system. So we were on the road. If he put the money here, he got it back, Stephen. He got it back. And we had to sign a contract. And I made an awful mistake. I had the contract that I signed with Roly Daniels, with Mick Quinn's office. And it was 25% off the top. So, but we had to get the band on the road. We didn't have the funds. So signed it.
The commission was 25%?
Off the top.
Off the top.
Stephen. Off the top. That was a Mick Quinn contract. A Mick Quinn contract. Off the top, man. So we're on the road. We go and audition for New Faces. We changed the name. What we done was, contractually wise, we couldn't really use Bloody Morgan and the Pirates. because that was Mick Quinn had that registered. So we went bloody Morgan Super Sound, just to use it until we knew we had applied to audition for New Faces, and it was coming up in 3 or 4 months' time. So we used that name, to get money, to try to get gigs, and using Harry's name, And 3 months later, we go to Birmingham, the Hippodrome, and we flew through that audition. Oh, easy. I'm not boasting, but we did. We done a Rubette song, I Can Do It. It was right. Something? That was Cahir O'Doherty's finishing up program. You know the way I said to you earlier, Stephen, about Roly finishing up with Ashton Gardner and Dyke, the Resurrection show. Well, I knew these. That's the highlight of the night. The last song. Cack used to have the place bouncing with "I Can Do It" by the Rubettes, and I knew that was a winner. So I sort of stole it in a way. I've told Cack this, I've told him. That was 70, 77. Yeah. So we done it, and I knew, and that's the song we done. Not just the audition, but when we won New Faces, the same song that we done. The format in New Faces was the show's done on a Tuesday night and broadcast on the Saturday. Rehearsals are on the Monday. Dress rehearsals were on the Tuesday. So we known from the Tuesday that we won the thing. You have to keep your trap shut, and saying nothing. We told our family, obviously, but they were sworn to secrecy. So anyway, I remember Tony Hatch. He was the arts critic, and he wrote "Downtown" for Petula Clark and Crossroads. He wrote the theme for Crossroads. So anyway, the format was there was 3 categories. There was star quality. Oh, I can't remember the other 2 just off the top of my head. But there was 120 points altogether, and we got 112. And we were 10 points ahead of the nearest act. First band in Ireland to win New Faces.
The 2 big programs were Opportunity Knocks and New Faces, weren't they?
Yes, yeah.
And
yeah.
I do know that one of the bands that you mentioned earlier on, I think it may have been Sunshine. Did they win?
That was Opportunity Knocks, and they were under our management, Cecil Thompson, under our management. And they won it, I think, maybe 6 times.
Yeah.
And I think the Cotton Mill Boys won it quite a few times.
I think so, yeah. I think they did. Yeah.
But
again, all of that is, as I said, very incestuous. Some of the names that you mentioned there as you went along, you even mentioned Martin McElroy and from Red Hurley's band. I played with Martin as well, with Johnny Feen. Yeah.
He taught me so much about jazz music, Steve.
Yeah.
He
was also in a band called The Crack with us.
Was Martin in The Crack?
He was, yeah.
God, I never knew that.
He was, fantastic, and what a character as well. But the names you're mentioning there, I mean,
giddy laugh, and you're like,
great,
lovely
great character.
Clondalkin, Martin.
Were you with Red when he went to Las Vegas?
No, Stephen, I was gone before that, and that was such. How do you think I felt? But it was such a disappointment when I finished up there, and the next thing. They're going to Red was doing Eurovision at the time, and then they were going to America. And my heart was broke. Oh, I'm back home. And my heart, it was. That's one of the. But yeah, I'd be stoic, Stephen. I'd be calm in the face of adversity, and you believe in yourself and you fight back, don't you?
When you look back on it, I mean, was that the end of your career after you left Cahir?
No, after that, there was Brenton Quinn and there was Cahir O'Doherty, and then there was the Jim Farley, and we were supposed to go to Canada, and the tour broke up. It didn't materialise, and we had a good band, But you see, but the thing was all geared towards going to going to Canada, but so there wasn't so many gigs in the diary, in Ireland. So Jim couldn't afford to keep it going. And we had some band, we had Timmy Creedon was on drums. Remember Timmy, the Bell and Brush Band. Sammy Nevin, God rest Sammy, lovely guitar player from Ballymena. And my great friend, he died 36, Arthur Madden. Arthur, the best friend that I had in the music business. the most talented fella, I ever met. He was a keyboard player, but he could sing anything. He could play the drums. His left hand was as fast as his right hand. Arthur Madden. Oh, Stephen. He played with the Royal Showband. Do you know when the boys went to join the Big Eight?
Yeah.
And the fun, it was like the new Royal. I think Connie Lynch was managing them or something. Connie. Yeah. No, Arthur. Well,
I mean, Arthur was often
player and sing.
Arthur was often compared to Fran O'Toole, wasn't he?
Oh, without a doubt, that's so similar. Yeah. Just a natural voice and just a natural musician, gifted. See, like Fran. Yeah.
And it was a big thrill for the man you just mentioned there, Connie Lynch. Connie, all his life he wanted to manage the Royal, didn't he? I think TJ Byrne actually took on the Big Eight, and so Connie then got the job of managing the Royal.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, the whole sequence of events, as in chronological order, Maurice, if you were to start, you start your very, very first band.
I'll run through it now with you, Stephen. There was Tracy and the Grassroots, then Potching, as I said, with Charlie Arkins and Eric Murray, and then it was Tomorrow's People. That was the pop scene. It wasn't big money, but we were making a living, paying the rent. After Tomorrow's People, I played with a little band called Harvest Research. Joe O'Reilly. Joe O'Reilly would be a famous man on the Dublin scene, just for about a month. Then Jim Farley asked me to join Roly. So after Roly Daniels, it was Red Hurley. After Red, it was Brenton Quinn. Then it was Cahir O'Doherty. And then the Jim Farley All-Stars. And then back home, out of work to Mammy, and it was the Bloody Morgan Super Sound, which we used that name for contractual reasons. And then Flash, when we done New Faces, which for about 5 years out of it. And then I was 30 years of age, and I just packed it in. The money wasn't coming in. We put the band CoOp. Harry and I, we owned the band, so we had paid the wage. All our ideas and money went into it. So we paid the lads the wage. But when it was all going really bad, we put the band CoOp. But you see, when the lads saw all the bills coming in, Stephen, they didn't, they thought they didn't know how to run a band works. They thought like it was nearly like as if we were cheating them, but it wasn't like that. We wouldn't do that. But it was a split between us rather than them on the wage. So it was more money for me and Harry, but it wasn't as much as we used to get, nowhere near. So it split. It was just a natural thing to split because the money wasn't coming in, and I went to Jersey then. And that was the end of it.
What do you think ended the big days of the show bands?
Well, discos. Huh. Money. It's all about money, isn't it? Like the discos have got much more popular. The show band scene. I didn't actually come into the show band scene in the 70s in its head. It was way before then, Stephen, as you know yourself. It was good, but the Clipper Carlton days, and then those were the big days. I was halfway through it, maybe half, 3/4 way of the Showband era. I think that's when I played.
It was Dublin centred all the time. You were Dublin centred for the most of your career.
All the time, except those 3 months in up north.
But I remember you were sharing a flat with Louis Walsh.
Yeah, well, at that time Louis was managing Chips, and the freshmen came up then, and I was playing with Red, and I met up with Louis, and I was living in Fairview, and Louis says, I'm living up in Rathgar, but I'm getting this new flat. It's for 4 people, 2 double rooms with 2 single beds in each room. Do you fancy sharing it with me? So that's what we done. And then we moved up to the Rathgar Road. And it was about a year altogether. He had some record collection, Louis, even then, in 75 singles. He had that thing for music, He's a good fella. See, I like Louis, never kept in touch, unfortunately, until my Jersey days, like running the nightclub in Jersey, the entertainment complex in Jersey, when he had boys home, and I got my boss to ring him up. So we got boys on over to Jersey. It was their first ever international gig. Love Me for a Reason had just been a hit, the Osmond song in the charts. But they were all young and they were raw. But so that was their first gig, and I fair play. You know, that's good in my memories that I didn't meet Louis in Jersey, and I haven't met him for 30, maybe 40 years. But that's part of my past, isn't it? Yeah.
Unfortunately, then, while you were in Jersey, you had a bad accident.
I did, yeah. I was in between jobs, and I was waiting to manage this pub in Nantes, in France, cleaning windows to pay the rent. And I fell 30 foot, and I broke my pelvis back and front, and ruined my life. So I came home after 3 months in hospital, learning to walk again. And, came home. I was never one for saving money, Stephen. A single man. I've been a bachelor all my life, you know. So I was lucky to have a home to come to. So, but the part of the deal was I would look after my mother. Mommy had MS for 50 years. And at that stage, it was 30 years, you know. So I looked after my mother till the day she died. In the last 8 years, she had dementia. It wasn't easy, Steve. Sometimes I wanted to run away, but it's probably the best thing I ever did in my life.
You got the greatest surprise of your life just a few years ago, didn't you?
Well, this is 15 years ago. I got a letter from the Social Security in Jersey, where within there's the adoption agencies and that said, I can remember it like yesterday. It said, we have a young girl who's trying to track down her natural father. Would you like to help with our inquiries? Yeah. Well, I have a daughter and 3 grandchildren, and I was never married, a bachelor. I never had anyone. And it's blood, Stephen. That's what it is. It's blood. And now I have someone belonging to me. That makes me so happy. I'm really crying.
Listening to your story and to the lineup that you went through, it is a who's who of the greats in Irish show bands. You've played with some of the greatest, certainly some of the greatest entertainers, the greatest singers, the greatest voices. Yeah. And you've had all the adventures. Have you got any regrets?
Oh dear. I've played. I don't think there's anybody in Ireland that's played with more bands than I have, Stephen, to be honest with you. Many regrets. I wish I would do a lot of things different, Steve. It's during my life, I don't understand why. I like a beer. Through having a few beers, I've made wrong decisions in my life about various things. That would be my biggest regret. I would do so. You know what people say to you, Stephen, that if they had their life to live over again, they wouldn't change a thing. God, I would change so many things, you know. And most of it comes back to maybe like for a beer. Yeah. I've never been in trouble or bother or anything like that. You know, I've always behaved. But yeah, that's my flaw.
And of all the styles of music you played, what's the one that gave you the most sort of satisfaction?
Oh, it'd be rock. You know, my favorite band would be the Rolling Stones. Yours is the Beatles, isn't it, Steve?
Oh yeah, Beatles.
Yeah, I'd be the Stones. Yeah. Seen them live in Slane 10 years ago. It wasn't what I expected, actually. You know, like I know the acoustics are perfect there and all. You know, the big brass section and the black girl singers and all wonderful, but I would rather have heard them live in their heyday, you know.
Well, I did. I saw them in Hyde Park in 1969. I was at the big gig, yeah.
Yeah, you lucky man.
Yeah, I love the Stones as well. All the whole 60s thing was in parallel, really, with the Showband thing. The Showband started around 62. I always say that the 60s started on the 5th of October 1963 when the Beatles released Love Me Do. Well, that was for me. So it was in parallel, perhaps because the lineups were that bit different, and the Irish bands, the show bands, the classic show bands had brass sections, whereas most of the beat groups didn't have. So look, a life well lived, and great memories. I'm sure you have
memories. Now there's one, Stephen. What a band!
Yeah,
the memories. I used to go to see them any Thursday night I could in the early 70s. They were at a residency in Barry's Hotel. This is before they went on the Showband circuit. They were wonderful. What a wonderful harmony band.
Oh, they were, yeah. I was just talking to Mick Swan the other night. We all lived in the same area in Portmarnock. There was Dara Doyle lived.
Who were you playing with them? Up to the Miami days?
I know this would have been in the days of the Crack.
The Crack.
Yeah.
There's only two of you in the photographs of the Crack.
Yeah.
Only the two of you, isn't there? No Martin McElroy on it. That's how I didn't know.
Martin, yeah. So you know, Peter Reeds, who had actually got my job when I left the Miami, Peter had joined a band when the Memories split. The Memories split for a short while, and Mick and Dara and a couple of them, they formed a band called The Message. Peter Reeds, who had got my job on bass when I left the Miami in 76, Peter joined them, I think it was on keyboards, on piano, or on bass, maybe on bass, but they were a terrific band. But the Memories were an inspirational band. I mean, harmony-wise, they were.
The clubs as well. Beside, just down from Barry's Hotel.
Yeah, at the back of the Iron, wasn't it? The Ace of Clubs. At the back of the
It's
Iron.
down towards the Revolution.
Yeah. If you came out the back door of the Iron,
Belvedere, sort of like the back of the Belvedere, isn't it?
Yeah, if you came out the back door of the Iron, you were facing the Ace of Clubs, and down to the right you would have had, as you say at the end, the Revolution. Where Colin Wilkinson used to play and all of that. Right. Great days. And so many of the bands, they're great rock bands. They tell me, I was working with Henry McCullough before he died as well as producing him. Mm-hmm. All say that
very quiet man, Stephen. Very quiet man, Henry. Huh?
And they all say that they learned their chops, they learned their trade, which stood to them for years after from the show bands.
Yeah, Eric Bell. And Henry with Gene and the Gents, wasn't it?
He played with the Skyrockets. Eric Bell played with the Dreams.
Yeah, I remember you saying that Henry said he wished he was back with the Gents or something like that.
He told me that. I asked him what if he was to relive a day in his life, and he said it would be when he was playing with the Skyrockets, the show bands with Sky. But Rory Gallagher learned his trade in two Cork show bands. One was the Impact, and the other was the Fontana. So you can't beat it. When you look back, you had the best of the best apprenticeship, didn't you, with the show bands?
Oh God, and some of the teachers I had, like Jim Farley, first and foremost, and Red. There was a fella in Tracy in the Grass, who's my first band, Danny McGahan. Danny had been with Tina and the Mexicans, remember? And then they toured Canada or America, and he was the organ player. Danny taught me a lot. I was always craving for knowledge and about music and how to get up the ladder, and just listening to people.
You said there earlier that that you didn't make a whole lot of money, but at the end of the day, for people like yourself and myself, it was about learning. Was it becoming a better musician? Yeah.
Like, I mean, we were earning, maybe 3, 4, 5 times the average wage at times. Yeah. And at Flash, when we won New Face, of course, Harry and I were making £1,000 each a week in 76, But we invested it all back into the band. We bought a big Jaguar XJ6 and then sound system. we invested. You build it up and up. That was my brother Harry's idea rather than me. Like I never had anything to do with the financial end of the band, even though I was 50% owner, because I wouldn't be much good with money, Steve. But my brother would be more sensible in that way. So that we worked good as a team. We did.
Isn't it great to say that your brother is your best friend as well? Isn't that a terrific thing to say?
Oh, I love him. Yeah. He's a year older than me. There's 10 in our family, Stephen. Big Catholic family.
Right.
And I'm second eldest. He's the boss. He's the head of the family. We look out for each other.
You're back again in Newry now, aren't you?
Been here since my accident in '96. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to try to get together, all of us. Maybe we'll have 10 bass players in the same band. But
Could be interesting.
We start practicing again, and who knows? And we can kid ourselves into thinking we're all wonderful.
Yeah.
But it was great to talk to you, Maurice.
It's an absolute pleasure, Steve. You
Just,
have a nice, easy-going way about you. You have a winning way about you.
I'd say it's probably old age. I can't go any faster than this. Maurice, you brought back so many memories to me, and I'm sure you'll bring back a lot of memories to our viewers as well.
Please, God.
And I hope we're going to see you again very soon.
It's very kind. Please, God. Absolute pleasure to meet you, Stephen, and to speak to you for the first time, face to face. Thank you.